If you've been around Christians, you've probably heard of the idea of having a personal relationship with God, which could mean different things in the Bible, like having God as a friend, or your father, or maybe your teacher.
But there's one particular way that the Bible talks about this relationship that you find all over. But strangely, we don't talk about it that much, and that's the idea of a partnership with God.
A partnership like working alongside someone to accomplish a goal together.
Right, and this is actually what you see at the beginning of the Bible. God creates this good world full of all of this potential. And then God appoints these unique creatures, humans, as his partners in bringing more and more goodness out of all that potential.
But the humans don't want to partner with God. They rebel and try to create a world on their own terms.
And so this broken partnership is the Bible's explanation for why we're stuck in a world of corruption and injustice and the tragedy of death.
It's not like there's just one or two humans who have bailed on this relationship. In the story of the Bible, everyone has abandoned the partnership with God.
So what God does is select a smaller group of people out of the many, and he makes a new partnership with them called a covenant. And in a covenant, God makes promises, and then in exchange asks his partner to fulfill certain commitments. And the purpose of all of this is to somehow use this covenant relationship to renew his partnership with everybody else.
Now, there are actually 4 times in the Old Testament that we're told God initiates a covenant relationship with Noah, Abraham, the nation of Israel, and King David.
And it's through these that God is forming a covenant family into which all people will eventually be invited.
So let's see how these work. The first one is with Noah.
So in this story, God has just brought the flood to cleanse the world of humanity's corruption, and Noah and his family are the only ones left. And so God makes a covenant with Noah, saying, listen, I know that humans will continue to be evil, but despite that, I'm not going to destroy it like this again. Instead, the earth will be this reliable place for us to work together.
Great. So what does Noah have to do?
Nothing. And that's what's so interesting about this first covenant, is that God is promising to be faithful, even though he knows humans won't be.
The next time we see God make a covenant is with a man named Abraham. God chooses him, promises to bless him, give him a large family, lots of land where they can flourish.
And in return, God asks Abraham to trust him and train up his family to do what is right and just. And the whole reason for this covenant is God says that somehow he's going to bring his blessing to all families of the world through this one family.
So that's Abraham. The next time we see God make a covenant is when Abraham's family grows into the tribe of Israel.
And this covenant is with the whole tribe. God asks them to obey a set of laws, which are these guidelines for living well as a community of God's partners. And if they do this, then God promises to bless them and that they will become a people who then represent him to the rest of humanity.
That's the covenant with Israel. The last covenant is with King David.
Yeah, the tribe of Israel has become this large nation ruled by David. And God asked David and his descendants to partner with him by leading Israel in obeying the laws and doing what is right and just. And God promises that one day, one of David's sons will come and extend God's kingdom of peace and blessing over all the nations.
So those are the 4 covenants that God makes in order to restore his partnership with the whole world.
But here's what happens. Israel breaks the covenant. They worship other gods, they allow horrible injustice, and so they lose their land and are forced off into exile.
So it seems hopeless. But during this time, Israel's prophets talked about a day when God would restore these covenants in spite of Israel's failure, somehow.
Yeah, they called it the New Covenant. And this is actually what's so interesting about Jesus, is that he's introduced into this story as the one who fulfills all of these covenant relationships. We're told that he's from the family of Abraham, and so he will bring the blessings of that family to the whole world. We're told that he's the faithful Israelite who is able to truly obey the law. And we're told that he's the king from the line of David, and so he goes about extending God's kingdom of justice and peace to all.
And that's really remarkable for one guy.
Yeah, and what it highlights is perhaps the most surprising claim of all made about this man, that Jesus is no mere human, but rather God become human. And God did this in order to be that faithful covenant partner that we are all made to be, but have failed to be. And so through Jesus, God has opened up a way for anyone to be in a renewed partnership with him.
So Jesus calls people to follow him and become part of this new covenant family.
And despite their failures, Jesus is committed to making them into partners who are becoming more and more faithful.
The story of the Bible ends with a vision of a fully renewed world, full of goodness and peace.
And there's this renewed humanity there, partnering together with God to expand the goodness of his creation. And so the end of the Bible story is really a new beginning. Hey, this is Tim.
And this is John.
We think one of the best ways to understand the Bible is to take its core themes and trace them all the way from the beginning through to the end.
We also take individual books of the Bible and explore their themes and structure.
We're a nonprofit, and we're always raising money for the next video, and you could be a part of helping us do that.
You might not know that Tim is a pastor here in Portland at Door of Hope Church, and he's got some really good sermons. You can find them at timmackey.com.
You can download high-resolution versions of all these videos. You can get study guides, all for free at jointhebibleproject.com.
Papuri at pagsamba sa ating Panginoong Hesus. Ang ating pong call to worship ay matatagpuan sa Psalms 33, 1-4. Ating pong basahin ng sabay-sabay. Lahat ng matuwid dapat na magsaya dahil sa ginawa ng Diyos sa kanila. Kayong masunuri magpuri sa Kanya. Ang Diyos na si Yahweh ay pasalamatan. Tugtugin ang alpa, awit ay salaywan. Isang bagong awit, awiting malakas. Kasaliw ang tugtog ng alpang marilag. Si Yahweh ay tapat sa kanyang salita at maaasahan ang kanyang ginawa. Tayo po'y manalangin. Amang banal na makapangyarihan sa lahat, nawa po'y samahan mo kami sa aming pagsamba, patuloy na ipamalas ang inyong kadakilaan sa oras na ito, Panginoon. Nawa po ang inyong pong pagmamahal at ang inyong pong mensahe na siyang patuloy na ipagkakaloob mo po sa amin spiritually ay mangusap sa aming mga puso. Gamitin mo po ang mga bumubuo ng programang ito, Panginoon, na siyang patuloy ka naming mapapurian. Muli po, marami pong salamat sa ngalan mo, Panginoong Hesus. Amen.
Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. High and lifted up, shining with your light and your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. To see you high and lifted up, shining with your love and your glory. Pour out the power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. See you high and lifted up, shining with your light and your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. I want to see you. Holy, holy, I want to see you. I want to see you. Holy, holy, holy. Let's be holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. I want to see you. To see you high and lifted up, shining with your love and your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing holy, holy, holy. See you high and lifted up, shining with your light and your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. We cry holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. I want to see you. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. I want to see you. We're pilgrims on the journey of the narrow road, and those who've gone before us light the way, cheering on the faithful, encouraging the weary. Their lives a stirring testament of God's sustaining grace. Surrounded by so great cloud of witnesses, let's run the race not only for the prize, but as those who've gone before us, let us leave to those behind us the heritage of faithfulness passed on for godly lives. Oh, may all who come behind us find us faithful. May the fire of our devotion light the way. May the footprints that we leave lead them to believe, and the lives we live inspire them to obey. Oh, may all who come behind us find us faithful. After all our hopes and dreams have come and gone, and our children sift through all we've left behind, may the goods that they discover and the memories they uncover become the light that leads them to the road which must find. Oh, may all who come behind us find us faithful. May the fire of our devotion light the way. May the footprints that we leave lead them to believe, and the lives we live inspire them to obey. This is my desire to honor you, Lord, with all my heart. I worship you. All I have within me, I give you praise. All that I adore is in you. Lord, I give you my heart, I give you my soul. I live for you alone. Every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake. Lord, have your way in me. This is my desire to honor you, Lord, with all my heart. I worship you. All that I have within me, I give you praise. All that I adore is in you. Lord, I give you my heart, I give you my soul. I live for you alone. Every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake. Lord, have your way in me. Lord, I give you my heart, I give you my soul. I live for you alone. Every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake. Lord, have your way in me. Lord, have your way in me.
Ama namin Diyos, Panginoong Banal, kami po ay taos-pusong nagpupuri at naghahandog ng aming panalangin at pagsamba sa inyo. Kami po ay kumikilala sa inyong kapangyarihan, kadakilaan bilang aming Panginoong Diyos na manglilikha ng mga bagay na narito sa lupa at nariyan sa langit. Sa inyo po nagbuhat ang aming buhay, ang aming kaluluwa. Ikaw ang pinanggalingan ng mga biyayang natatanggap namin sa araw-araw. Ikaw ang nagbibigay sa amin ng talino ng aming isipan, lakas ng aming katawan, kaligayahan ng aming mga puso, kapanatagan ng aming mga diwa at pag-ibig namin sa aming kapwa. Panginoong Diyos, maraming salamat po sa inyong mga kabutihan at pangunawa sa amin. Kami po ay maliit na alipin sa inyong harapan na naghahandog sa iyo ng pasasalamat sa lahat ng bagay na aming nakikita, nahihipo, naamoy naririnig at nararanasan. Maraming salamat, Panginoon, sa pagbibigay sa amin ng isang pamilya na aming maasahan at masasandalan sa tuwing kami po ay nahihirapan. Maraming salamat sa pagbibigay sa amin ng mga kaibigan na aming matatawagan sa sandali nang kami po ay nangangailangan. Maraming salamat, Panginoon, sa pagbibigay sa amin ng mga kasamahan sa trabaho na nakahandang tumulong sa amin sa sandaling kami ay nangangailangan. Maraming salamat po, Panginoon, sa aming mga kapatid sa pananampalataya na siyang dumadalangin sa amin at nagbibigay ng tulong sa amin, at lalong-lalo na sa pagbahatid sa amin ng iyong salita. Maraming salamat po sa kanila, sapagkat sa pamamagitan po nila kami po ay lalong napapalapit sa inyo, Panginoong Diyos. Maraming salamat po sa lahat, Panginoon, ng mga tao na nagbibigay ng challenge po sa amin sa araw-araw upang lalo po namin makita, Panginoon, at maipakita ang inyong pagmamahal po sa kanila, at amin pong iparanas, Panginoon, ang pag-ibig niyo sa kanila, Panginoon, sa pamamagitan ng aming mga gawa at pagpapakita ng aming pananampalataya. Lord, minsan po kami po ay patawarin ninyo sa aming mga pagkukulang at kasalanan. Lapatan mo ng kalinisan ang aming maruruming puso at isipan upang kami po ay malayo sa anumang dungis na siyang nagiging dahilan upang mailayo namin ang aming sarili sa iyo. Patawarin mo kami sa paminsan-minsan naming hindi pagsunod sa inyo at sa panghihina ng aming pananampalataya. Kaya, O Diyos, nakikita po namin ang aming kahinaan, Lord. Kaya po, nangangailangan po kami ng inyong kalakasan. Panalangin din po namin, Panginoong Diyos, na naway magkaroon kami ng sapat na kalakasan upang magampanan namin ang aming responsibilidad bilang isang ama, ina, anak, kapatid, kaibigan sa aming kapwa. Bigyan mo kami ng tuwid na isipan, Panginoon, upang sa bawat sandali ng aming buhay ay walang ilalaman ito kundi ang paglilingkod lamang sa inyo. Lord, bigyan mo kami ng kapanatagan ng aming isip sa araw at gabi na siyang magsisilbing paalala sa amin na ikaw ay buhay na Diyos at kayo po ang siyang aming Panginoon. Lord, iligtas mo po kami sa mga kapahamakan at ilayo niyo po kami sa tukso ng sanlibutan ito upang ang aming buhay ay kayo lamang ang mapaglingkuran at hindi po ang aming sariling kagustuhan. Aming Diyos, tulad ng sinasabi ng inyong salita na kapag kami tumawag sa iyo, ang inyong bayan, sila'y inyong pakikinggan, sasamahan, sasakluluhan at ililigtas. Lord, kami po'y dumadalangin, Panginoon, sa aming mga mahal sa buhay, kapatid sa pananampalataya, kaibigan, Lord, na nakakaranas po ng matinding karamdaman sa panahon ngayon. Lord, dalangin po namin ang comfort niyo po sa kanilang pamilya. Dalangin po namin, Panginoon, ang inyong provision, hindi lang po sa material na bagay, kundi, Panginoon, sa kanilang spiritual na buhay na higit sa lahat na napakahalaga, Panginoon, na makilala kanila at makita kanila bilang kanilang Panginoong tagapagligtas. Alam po namin, Panginoon, na sa mundong ito, wala pong permanenteng bagay. Meron man kaming salapi, katanyagan, katalinuhan, posisyon sa lipunan, Lord, ang lahat ng ito po ay mawawala. At isa lang po ang higit na mahalaga, Panginoon, yung makilala ka namin bilang Panginoong tagapagligtas upang kayo po ay aming makasama sa buhay na walang hanggan. Panginoon, dalangin din po namin ang aming iglesia na patuloy po, O Diyos, na pangunahan niyo po ang aming mga leader, ang aming mga elders, ang aming mga members, Lord, na patuloy, O Diyos, na ikaw lamang po ang kanilang paglingkuran. Ang kanilang pong isip ay ituon lamang, Panginoon, sa paglilingkod sa inyo upang ang iyong gawain, Panginoon, ay lumawak pa at maraming mga tao na maabot, Panginoon, ng inyong mensahe. Lord, maraming salamat po sa bawat aming kapatiran na nagbibigay po ng panalangin po sa amin. Tulong, Panginoon, lalong-lalo na, Lord, ang pagpapahayag ng inyong salita. Maraming salamat po, Diyos, at dalangin din po namin, Lord, ang provision niyo, Panginoon, sa aming iglesia, sa aming pinansyal. Alam po namin, Lord, na karamihan po sa amin ay wala pong nawalan ng hanap buhay, nawalan ng mga resources, Lord, dahil po sa pandemic na ito. Ngunit, Panginoon, ang iyong biyaya po ay sapat na po sa araw-araw naming buhay. Kaya po, Panginoon, dalangin din po namin ang aming mga kapatid na malayo sa aming piling at nagtatrabaho abroad. Kayo po ang siyang patuloy, Panginoon, na mag-ingat po sa kanila. At maraming salamat po sa buhay po nila na kung saan ay nakakasama po namin sila sa gawain at pagpapalago ng iyong ministeryo. Dalangin din po namin, O Diyos, na patuloy na ingatan niyo po ang bansang Pilipinas sa dulot po ng COVID-19. Pataas po ng pataas ang mga kaso po nito dito po sa aming bansa. Lord, dalangin po namin ang patuloy na pagkalingan niyo po. Dalangin po namin ang patuloy na pagprotekta niyo po. Dalangin po namin, O Diyos, ang patuloy na paggaling, Panginoon, ng may karamdaman na ito at naway mabawasan na, Panginoon, at hindi na po magkaroon ng pagbubuwis ng buhay dulot ng sakit na ito. Lord, dalangin po namin ang leader ng aming bansa, ang aming Pangulo, na naway patuloy, O Diyos, na bigyan nyo ng katalinuhan at wisdom upang patuloy, O Diyos, na makagawa siya ng mga paraan upang masugpo, Panginoon, at mapigilan ang paglago ng sakit na ito, Panginoon, sa aming bansa. At higit sa lahat, Lord, dalangin po namin na naway matapos na, Panginoon, ang dulot ng pandemic na ito sa buong mundo, Panginoon. Marami na pong mga buhay, marami na pong mga sakripisyo ang nangyayari, Lord. Kahit na po, Panginoon, ang mga taong may ibang sakit, Lord, nahihirapan na po sila pumunta ng mga ospital sapagkat puno na po, Panginoon, dulot ng sakit na ito. Kaya po, O Diyos, dalangin po namin na ang aming mga leader ay gumawa ng paraan, Panginoon, upang unti-unti pong mabawasan ang mga nagkakaroon po ng kaso ng sakit na ito. At dalangin po namin na mawala na po ito, Panginoon, at matapos na sa mundong ito. Lord, maraming salamat, at higit sa lahat, kami po ay nagtitiwala, Panginoon, sa inyo. Kami man ay natatakot, kami man ay nangangamba, Lord, sa sakit na ito. Ngunit, O Diyos, kayo po ang aming lakas, kayo po ang aming tatag, at kayo po ang aming Panginoon na magliligtas po sa sakit na ito. Lord, minsan pa, O Diyos, pinagkakatiwala po namin ang aming buhay sa inyo. Kayo na po ang bahala, Panginoon, na patuloy na kumilos sa aming buhay. Maraming salamat, Ama. Ang lahat ng ito ay aming panalangin sa pangalan ni Jesus. Amen.
Purihin ng Diyos at meron na naman tayong pagkakataon makapanambahan at magkaisa sa pamamagitan ng makabagong teknolohiya at sa matiyagang pamamatnubay ni Pastor Kit sa ating technical team. Ating pong mensahe ay pinamagatang victim to victor. Ito po. Mula po sa buhay ni Joseph ayon sa Genesis chapter 37 hanggang chapter 50. Today, instead of the usual outline, we will be flashing the topic, kamukha po nito, naka-flash yung topic natin, with the corresponding verses and dive directly to it. As you will know, I am very fan of Jonathan Edwards, a long time ago pastor who could preach for 3 straight hours. 3 oras po. But whose eloquence so mesmerized his audience that they kept to their seats. And we were even seen holding to the armrest for fear that the ground beneath them might open up and gobble them. I wish I could be like Jonathan Edwards. Ano po? Preach for 3 straight hours. Manalangin po tayo. Mang Diyos, kami po'y lumalapit sa trono ng iyong biyaya, ng iyong grasya, Panginoon, upang pamuli ay hilingin sa iyo na pangunahan mo kami sa araw na to sa aming pagsamba sa iyo. Puspusin mo po kami ng iyong banal na Espiritu, Lord, pangunahan mo kami. Linawin na aming mga kaisipan, buksan na aming mga puso, Lord, upang manamnam po namin ang mga mensahe, Panginoon, na aming pong pag-uusapan ngayon. Salamat po sa iyong inspirasyon na nabuo ang mensahe ito, Lord. Sana nga po, Panginoon, ay magsisilbi po itong inspirasyon sa amin at tunay na makita namin ang katotohanan ng mga salita mo na ang bawat salita po na nakatitik sa Biblia ay totoo. Salamat po, Lord. Muli po, salamat sa pagkakataon ito, Panginoon. Sa ngalan po ni Jesus. Amen. Many people like to read success stories, as I do, especially the rags to riches type. These success stories tend to inspire and give hope. Some people's success stories are not totally truthful. There are secrets to the stories that they don't really tell. And that's where success stories of the Bible differ. Every significant fact is buried, no holds barred. Take the case of Joseph in Genesis chapter 37 to 50. When Joseph told his dreams to his brother, they hated him. That's in Genesis chapter 37, verse 7. He told his brothers, "We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field, when suddenly my sheep rose and stood upright, while your sheep gathered around me and bowed down to it." Joseph may have just stated a fact of his dream, but to his brothers it was offensive, primarily because he was much younger than they were. But to his siblings, he sounded like he was bragging. The older brothers then looked kindly to it and felt slighted that the favorite son of their father would lord it over them. The hatred even became more intense when Joseph told of his other dream, Genesis 37 verse 9. This time, it was not just the siblings bowing to him, but their parents as well. Joseph's brothers carried the hatred in their hearts, not just a grudge, to the point that they plotted to kill him. Genesis 37:19. The opportunity came when Joseph was sent by his father, Jacob, to his brothers, who were tending their flocks away from home. That's in Genesis chapter 37, verses 12 to 14. Joseph's life was spared when his oldest brother Reuben interceded and suggested instead to throw him in a pit, which is also a cistern, in the desert. That's in Genesis chapter 37, verses 21 to 22. The brothers agreed, seized Joseph, stripped him of his richly ornamented robe, handwoven by Jacob, and threw him into the empty cistern. pit. It is a natural or dug out hole in the earth. This is also used as a grave. And we have examples in Psalms 40 verse 2. And Psalms 40 verse 2 reads, He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. In Isaiah 38 verse 17 says, In your love, you kept me from the pit of destruction. So we'll notice that it's not a good area to be in. Let's pause at this point and consider the circumstances leading to Joseph's flight. Tingnan natin, ano ba si Joseph? As a youngster, Joseph was overconfident, immature, and boastful. His natural self-assurance was increased by being Jacob's favorite son. But one thing good about Joseph is that he had personal knowledge of God and designs for his life. Part of Jewish tradition and culture is belief in God, talking to them in dreams. And this is precisely what happened to Joseph. God talked to him in dreams. Now, let's consider the other factors. The siblings hated him. Number one, because of his mother. And number two, because of jealousy. Jacob, their father, showed favoritism when Jacob made for Joseph, his son with Rachel, aside from Benjamin, a richly ornamented robe. In those days, a robe was a symbol of royalty, knee-length and short-sleeved. And Joseph's robe was richly ornamented, and it was in fact even hand-woven. Now, parents, hear this. Jealousy, when left unchecked, grows quickly and leads to a serious sin. The longer one cultivates jealous feelings, the harder it is to uproot them. The time to deal with jealousy is when you notice yourself keeping score of what others have. Favoritism in families may be unavoidable, but it is divisive, and divisive effects must be minimized. Parents may not be able to change their feelings toward a favorite child, but they can change their action towards the others. Now, let's take a look at the possible conditions of the pit. Let me just post this. What are the possible conditions of the pit? It's damp, smelly, dark, dirty, uncomfortable, eerie. Now, ano kaya? What could have run in Joseph's mind while inside the pit? Did he agonize over his fate? Was he remorseful that he bragged to his brothers? In fact, did fear seize him over the possibility of death? Was he now angry at his brothers? Did he think of exacting revenge if he got out alive? What was he feeling towards God? Did sorrow grip Joseph's heart for the betrayal? Can we imagine the pressure building up in Joseph? Would Joseph think that it was for his good that he was in the pit? Now remember our verse for today, Romans 8:28, that in all things God works together for the good. But what about Joseph? At that point in time that he was in the pit, can he ever say that it was for his good that he was in the pit? Joseph's hardship wasn't only for a day or two. When he was pulled out of the pit, that's in Genesis 37:28, Joseph must have heaved a sigh of relief, thinking his brothers took pity on him. How surprised he must have been when he was handed over to the slave traders. Joseph's hopes might have been rekindled when his siblings decided to pull him out of the pit and sell him to the Ishmaelites who were bound for Joseph. At least he will remain alive. The brothers were worried about bearing the guilt of Joseph's death. Judah suggested an option that was still not right but could mitigate their guilt feelings about murdering their younger brother. Sometimes we too jump into a solution that is a lesser of two evils, but still not the right action to take. When someone proposes a seemingly workable win-win solution, let's first ask, is it right? Although Joseph's brothers didn't kill him outrightly, they didn't expect him to survive long being a slave. Slaves were made to walk barefoot through the desert, and from where they were, it was a 30-day travel to Egypt. The slaves were shackled, chained on the foot with one another to make escape impossible. Have you seen the movie Gladiator? They picture the slaves there. Slaves were treated as a piece of merchandise and sold at the slave market. They were inspected by would-be buyers, undressed, and treated in a very shameful situation. The slave could not complain, or he could be whipped and deprived of food and water. Joseph's brothers might have found a way to ease their guilt by selling Joseph as a slave. Don't we do too? We naghahanap tayo ng lusot para gumaan ang konsensya natin. But their intention remained, and so did their saying. That's in Genesis chapter 37, verses 31 to 35. Jacob's son deceived their father into thinking Joseph was already dead to go over for an evil act. Jacob himself practiced deceit. That's in Genesis 27:35. God may have not punished Joseph immediately, but the consequence of his action haunted him. In Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, a captain of the guard of the Pharaoh. In Egypt, Joseph was subject to a culture shock. He has lived a free life as a herdsman, roaming the mountains for vegetation to feed his father's flock. Suddenly, he was thrust into the world's most advanced civilization, towering pyramids, beautiful villas, grandiose houses, and sophisticated people speaking a different language. Joseph saw Egypt's skills and intelligence, and their spiritual blindness as well, worshipping several idols. In Genesis 39:2 describes the character of Joseph that made him stand out. The Lord was with Joseph. This is the most important key to Joseph's life, connectivity. He had the right connections. God was with Joseph. And Joseph, prospered by the grace of God, demonstrated such a strong testimony in Genesis 41:35 to such an extent that his master Potiphar put him in charge of everything that Potiphar owned. Joseph cultivated his relationship with God by firmly practicing what he believed in. Thus, when Potiphar's wife repeatedly seduced him, he did not hesitate to say no. Joseph maintained his integrity and declared, "No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" Genesis 39 verse 9. Despite the lady's several advances on a daily basis, Joseph stood his ground, as first and foremost in his mind was not to sin. Of course, that would have meant adultery against God. Now, how about us? When temptations arise, what is our immediate reaction? Do we pause and give it a thought? Teka muna ma'am. Baka dumating si Sir, mahuli tayo. Or can we be like Joseph and immediately say no? Always ask the question before you take any action. Is God glorified or is He horrified? Let me repeat that. Is God glorified or is He horrified? Joseph's travails continued. He already sorely missed his parents and his siblings. Loneliness is a great cause of depression, as experienced by many who are separated from their families. In fact, this is one major problem of our OFWs, loneliness. But Joseph maintained his sanity because of his connectivity to the giver of life. One day, Joseph found himself inside a prison due to the manipulation of Potiphar's wife. Remember the saying? Hell hath no fury than a woman scorned. Joseph could have grumbled that the reward for his faithfulness was imprisonment. His resentment to life's treatment to him would have aggravated his condition. But Joseph continued to trust in God as manifested by his actuations even while inside prison. The prison. We have it as well here. Perhaps many of us have a vague notion of the life in prison. Most of our concepts are based on what we have seen in the movies. Or probably, some of us have seen the inside of a prison cell. I myself have experienced sleeping overnight inside the jail. I was 13 then, and with my cousin Tony, we watched in a movie house about 2 kilometers from where we live in Angustia, Tondo. Angustia has been changed to A.P. Reyes Street in honor of the owner of the Santa Ana racetrack, who also owns the bus track of land in Tondo, Manila. Aside from the fact that Angustia was a well-known hub of good goods. It was a double program and we went at night, so it was already midnight when we got out. Outside the movie house was a police car. We were not aware that they were enforcing the vagrancy law. Otherwise, you could have held on to a hand of an adult going home. We were brought to the juvenile city jail near the Silveran Market. Apparently, our aunts got wind of what happened, and with the help of a neighbor who operated the canteen at Manila City Hall, fetched us from the detention center. Since the precinct commander was known to our neighbor, our records, index cards, where they write your data, they were pulled out of the pile, torn, and thrown into the wastebasket. We therefore have clean records. How was the prison cell like? Cold concrete? We slept that night sitting as the 7th floor was too cold to lie down. We couldn't even pee at night since there was no urinal inside the prison cell, and we didn't want to awaken the guard as we could either be scolded or beaten. I imagine the prison cell of Joseph was far worse. In Joseph's time, the prison cells were underground and therefore very dark, and the only light would be coming from the torches. Remember the jail experience of Paul in Acts 16? The jailer called for lights to see if the prisoners did not escape. Even while in prison, Joseph prospered. He found favor with the jail warden because the Lord was with him. Genesis 39:21. Again, the Bible repeats the key to Joseph's success. The Lord was with him. Why did God favor Joseph? Joseph had his flaws, just like us. Like any one of us, we have flaws. But what made him different? Let's consider 1 Samuel 16 verse 7. Let me repeat that. 1 Samuel 16 verse 7. And let me read. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. people look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. The warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in prison and was made responsible for all that was done there. Genesis 39:23 says, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Repeatedly we are told the Lord was with Joseph. Even after being in prison for trumped-up charges, Joseph did not become bitter with God. So unlike Job or any one of us perhaps, instead, he continued to trust in God. His actuation is a good example of what Paul wrote in Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. While in the pit or in prison, Joseph could not realize how it was for his good in everything that was happening in his life. Earlier in my Christian life, I was confronted with a hard question. Paano yung dalagang na-rape? Can you still say that what happened works for her good? Or will we immediately proclaim, what good is there for the lady having been raped? But we do not know what events will unfold in her life. We need to realize that we can only see so much. For example, events happening in this timeline. (1972), 1986, 2020, 2030. In hindsight, we can readily declare what happened in the past. 1972 was martial law. 1986 was People Power Revolution. 2020, that is now. But 2030, we can describe what's happening in our time now. But we do not have the slightest idea what's going to happen 10 years from now. Not even a year from now. Unlike God, when He looks at the timeline, He can see at one glance the past, the present, and the future. Isang tingin lang, alam na niya, nakita na niya lahat, mula sa umpisa hanggang sa katapusan. So He is not surprised how we will react to an event a year from now. That's because He is omniscient or all-knowing. When I was in high school in the mid-1960s, I knew what I wanted. So I filled up an application form and mailed it. But I received another form that I needed to send to my father, who was in Mindanao at that time. I'm referring to the application form I filled up for the Philippine Military Academy. I wanted to be a soldier, so I can later on choose to be with the Air Force, become a pilot, and see the world. After 3 years of service, I could resign and join the commercial airlines and make a lot of money. Obviously, that didn't happen. The consent form I sent to my father didn't come back, and I missed enrollment at the PMA. At that point in time, if I was already a Christian then, I would have asked, of what good is my missing the enrollment at the PMA? My dreams were shattered in the first place. I lost my chance of becoming a pilot, which could have been a key to a successful career. It was only years later, when I was already a believer, that I realized it was for my good that I missed the enrollment. When I was in my second year at Mapua, in Dorote Jose, a former high school classmate visited me. He was my friend who also applied with the PMA. He said he was on furlough, and that was the last time I saw him. We had unconfirmed news, but we weren't really sure. Last year, I I requested my nephew, who graduated from the PMA, and who is now a major with the Scout Rangers. In fact, it was his group that dealt the Mauti in Marawi. But my nephew was pulled out of that because the headquarters said he was too valuable to be lost. At any rate, I asked him to check the roster of the PMA to find out what happened to my classmate. After some calls, my nephew informed me that my classmate, Antonio Duran, graduated from the PMA and was sent to Basilan for his first assignment. My friend was killed in his very first encounter with the Moros. And then I realized there are only three things that could have happened if I was able to go through the PMA. One, I would have been killed too. Two, I would have been one of those officers involved in anomalies. And three, I would now be a retired general. Who would have ever imagined that I would now be delivering a Sunday worship message? Now I know it was for my good that I missed enrollment at the PMA, because I met the Lord one Saturday morning in July 1975. One thing I learned from this episode of my life is that no matter how intelligent we are, no matter how knowledgeable we become, when we read a lot, when we talk, when we do some research, we acquire knowledge. No matter what wisdom we accumulate, we still cannot encompass the mind of God. We can never outthink the all-knowing God. And Isaiah 55:9 is proven to me. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. In Joseph's life at that point, it was difficult to find the good in the circumstances surrounding him. Thrown into a pit by his own brothers to die, sold to slavery, and then thrown into prison for false charges. But Joseph was firm in his conviction and believed wholeheartedly, reminding us of Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. The break came to Joseph while serving his prison sentence in jail. The cupbearer and the chief baker of the king of Egypt offended their master and were themselves thrown into prison. They were assigned to Joseph, and Joseph attended to them, as in Genesis chapter 40. Pharaoh's two officials both had dreams of the same night, but with different meanings, and no one could interpret them. Joseph saw the chief cupbearer and the chief baker both looking dejected, and inquired as to the cause of their sadness. Both told Joseph that they had dreams that no one could interpret. Joseph's reaction? Do not interpretations belong to God? Joseph acknowledged God in every occasion. His dependence was centered on God. Then Joseph told them the meaning of his dream. Joseph may have been deprived of freedom while in prison, but he continued to serve and honor God in his capacity as a trusted prisoner. As a prisoner, Joseph was deprived of the one thing most desired by Jews and would even die for: freedom. Yet, that did not stop him from freely exercising his faith in God. He did not lament the fact that he was an imprisoned slave away from loved ones. As God's plan unfolds, the Pharaoh had a dream that not one of his wise men and magicians could give meaning to. Then the cupbearer remembered Joseph after 2 full years, as in Genesis chapter 41, and told the king about a Hebrew slave in the service of the captain of the guards who was in prison with them. Pharaoh sent for Joseph and related his dreams. Here's what Joseph said. Genesis 41 verse 16. I cannot do it, Joseph replied to Pharaoh. But God will give Pharaoh the answers he desires. Here again is Joseph's acknowledgement of God. Standing in the presence of the king of Egypt, whose tradition included honoring the Pharaoh as God. In another circumstance, Joseph's answer could have been taken as disrespect and an insult to the king, and could have cost his life. Again, Joseph stood by what he believed in. The God of Israel is the true God. Joseph lived his faith. Let me repeat that. Joseph lived his faith. When the subject of dreams came up, Joseph focused everyone's attention to God rather than using the situation to make himself look good, just like what has happened in the hearings in Congress. He turned the situation into a powerful witness and testimony for the Lord. It was not Joseph's knowledge of dreams that helped him interpret, but his knowledge of God. After Joseph informed the Pharaoh the meaning of the two forms of dreams, he suggested courses of actions, and Pharaoh asked his officials, can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God? Genesis 41:37. What a powerful recognition of who Joseph is. And continuing, going towards the end of this message, we go to praise. Remember, our topic was from pit to prison to praise. So from being a victim to a victor. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, there is no discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. Genesis 41:39. Joseph was put in charge of the whole land of Egypt, and as a symbol of his authority, Joseph was given Pharaoh's signet ring. He was dressed in robe and fine linen. Pharaoh put a gold chain around his neck. He was made to ride in a royal chariot, given the name Sapinat Panea. And he was given Asinat, daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On, or called Heliopolis, a prominent Egyptian official, as Joseph's wife. So Asinat became Joseph's wife. And Joseph was made second in command by the Pharaoh. Pharaoh may have been trying to make Joseph more acceptable to the Egyptians by giving him an Egyptian name and an Egyptian wife. Nomadic shepherds like Joseph was an occupation that the Egyptians disliked. Joseph was 30 years old when he became governor of Egypt. He was 17 when he was sold into slavery. 13 long years. Joseph took all the suffering and hardship in great stride, not knowing what good was in all those difficulties. Did success swell Joseph's head? Consider his statement to his brothers. And now, do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. Genesis 45:5. In the pit, was Joseph aware that one day he will lord it over Egypt? While in the pit, can we honestly say it was for good? Again, in hindsight, we can say, in all things, God works together for good to them that loves God, to them who are called according to His purpose. Since we already know the ending. Sorrows come when we bring down God to our level of understanding. That's why Proverbs 3:5-6 reminds us to trust in the Lord with all our heart and not to lean on our own understanding, and in all our ways to acknowledge Him, that He may direct our path. We are not in control. God is. Let us always remember that nothing ever happens unless God allows it to happen. And when He allows it, it is for a purpose. God is a purposeful God. Are you in a dire situation now? Feeling dejected, hopeless, frustrated, overwhelmed? Jesus said, I've told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. John 16:33. Romans 8:28 is again proven true, as every word of God is.
Malalaking halaga. Mark 12:41-44. Mark 12:41-44. Ang kaloob ng babaeng balo. Umupo si Jesus sa tapat ng hulugan ng mga kaloob doon sa templo at pinagmasdan ang mga taong naghuhulog ng salapi. Maraming mayayamang naghulog ng malalaking halaga. Lumapit naman ang isang babaeng balo at naghulog ng 2 kusing na katampas ang isang pera. Tinawag ni Jesus ang kanyang mga alagad, kanyang sinabi, sinasabi ko sa inyo, ang babaeng balong iyon ang naghulog ng higit sa kanilang lahat, sapagkat ang iba'y nagkaloob ng halaga ng bahagi lamang na hindi na nila kailangan, ngunit ibinigay ng babaeng balo ito na dukhang-dukha ay buo niyang ibinigay ang kanyang ikabubuhay. At panghandog ay isang pagsamba, pagkilala na ang Diyos ang may-ari ng lahat ng ating mga tinasangkilig. Wala dapat tayong maaaring ariin na atin at lahat ng ito ay pahiram lamang at dapat natin pahalagan at pagdamutan. Dapat di na tayo maging malamot. Bukas ang palad lagi sa pagtulong na may kagalakan at may pasasalamat at pagpapakumbaba. Gawin nating limbawa ang balong nagbigay lahat ng kanyang kung ano ang mayroon siya para ihandog sa Panginoon. Naging generous giver tayo. Bugas lagi ang palad para sa mga nangangailangan. Magalak tayo lagi sa pagbibigay dahil kung bukas ang ating mga palad sa pagbibigay, marami ang patuloy na nananalangin, nagpapasalamat sa Diyos na ginamit po tayo bilang daluyan ng pagpapala. Pagpalain na ba ang bawat isa sa atin ng ating Panginoon Jesucristo. Maraming salamat po.
Let's pray. Lord God, marami pong salamat sa araw na to. Muli po'y nakapakinig kami ng mensahe na galing sa iyo, Lord. Salamat po sa inspirasyon na ibinuhos mo, Panginoon, upang mabuo ang mensahe ito. Ganun din po, Lord, inihiling namin na patnubayan mo kami nang sumapuso nga po namin, Lord God, ang mensahe mo upang maipamuhay namin ng totoo ang pananampalataya sa iyo. Makita po din sa amin, katulad po na nangyari sa buhay ni Joseph, Lord. Na sa ganun nga po, Lord God, ay maging mapanagumpay po kami, katulad ni Joseph. Be with us, Lord, in everything we do, wherever we go, Lord God. Yes, Father, make our hearts right with you, Lord, that you will be with us always at all times. Thank you, Lord. Pagtabayin mo nga po kami maging sa nalalaling sandali ng araw na to, Lord. Sa ngalan po ni Jesus. Amen.
Above all powers, above all kings, above all nature and all created things, above all wisdom and all the ways of man. You were here before the world began. Above all kingdoms, above before the world began. Above all kingdoms, above all thrones, above all wonders the world has ever known, above all wealth and treasures of the earth, there's no way to measure what you're worth. Crucified, laid behind a stone, you live to die, rejected and alone, like a rose trampled underground. You took the fall and thought of me. Crucified, laid behind a stone, you live to die, rejected